We all say we need more clamps, but just what kind of clamps do we need? The first kind of clamps I want to mention are what are called F clamps. And these are screw action clamps, which means you get the tightening pressure onto whatever it is you're trying to clamp with a screw action. When we're talking about this, I'm really just showing you bar clamps here, and so named because of this bar. There are other clamps that provide this same sort of action, such as pipe clamps, the aluminum bar clamps, which are more of a hollow tube, okay? Nevertheless, they're all really designed to do pretty much the same thing, and that's provide pressure axially, in other words, along the length of the clamp. And in doing so, they're used for a wide variety of purposes. We can use them for edge gluing panels, gluing a block together. These little ones, these little 6 inches, are what you typically would use to put a stop block onto the fence of a saw or something like that. So these are a very, very versatile clamp. When you say you need more clamps, this is most likely the clamp you really need. Can other clamps do what these do? Yes, and these can do other things than what I'm showing here. They're very, very versatile clamp. That's why it's one that we need so much. The second most important type of clamp in the workshop, as far as I'm concerned, is the corner clamp. Now, I know a lot of people don't use corner clamps or use them rarely, but to me, this is another real workhorse, especially for assembly. And what I mean is by holding pieces together while I screw them or nail them. Yes, you can do that freehand, but there's a good chance your corners are not going to come out absolutely perfect doing that. There are different styles of corner clamps, and I'll show you a couple different ones here. What you really need to do is find what works for you. This particular style right here, where you've got a machined piece of aluminum bar with a couple of L-shaped rod clamps that go with it, have become very, very popular lately, in the last few years. I personally have trouble working with these. I feel like I need another hand or two every time I try and use them. That doesn't necessarily mean they're bad, it's just a problem I have with them. I prefer this type of corner clamp, and I find this very easy to use with. I have several of these, and basically you just put your pieces in there, line them up, and tighten it down. And that gives you a great way of holding pieces together. I have several of them, so I can do, say, a whole box or a whole frame with them, if that's what I'm doing. Now, in addition to that, there's a couple of homemade clamps I want to show you. This, which is just made out of a corner of a piece of plywood, is essentially the same thing as that. It's just, it's designed to be used with F clamps, like we just talked about, small F clamps in place of these clamps. And that's a cheap and easy way to clamp things together. And then I have a number of these of different sizes that I've put together. And they're great when you're trying to put something big and boxy together, because not only do they hold it at 90 degrees, but you can use it as a support. So there's a couple of real things here I want to mention, and that is the fact that 1, it holds at 90 degrees, 2, it makes sure your joint is tight, and 3, it holds it up for you. So that's why those 3 things are why corner clamps of whatever type are so good. The third kind of clamp I want to mention, and it's probably a very, very popular clamp, is what's called a quick action clamp or a quick release clamp. The difference between these and a bar clamp, or that like we were talking about before, an F-style clamp, is that they've got a trigger action for tightening. That allows you to use these clamps one-handed. Let me show you here. I've got 3 pieces of wood, and I want to put these things together in an odd way. Let's say we're going to do sort of a T here, okay? I can hold these together how I want them with one hand while I use the other hand to tighten the clamp up. Does this work as well as the F clamp? Well, the big problem when you compare the two is that you don't get as much clamping pressure out of these. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's something bad, because you don't always need all that clamping pressure. It really depends on what you're trying to do. So these are very useful clamps for putting things together quickly. Another thing you can do with them is use them on your bench in conjunction with the dog holes, because the end comes off. Once I've taken the end off, I can slip this through, put the other end back on from the bottom, and that allows me to adjust the clamp and bring it down and use it as a hold down to hold things to my workbench. So that makes it very useful as an alternate use for the clamp. As I said, they're great for holding things together, but they really aren't the type of clamp to use for a glue up. It's more like an assembly clamp. I'm working on putting something together. I need to hold it. I need another pair of hands. Here's your other pair of hands right here. A relative newcomer to the world of clamping is the bench dog clamp. These are designed to work in conjunction with the bench dog holes on your workbench. Now, traditionally, bench dogs were only used with the side vise or the end vise, but this allows you to use the entire workbench as a clamping surface. Say you've got something irregular, okay? It's regularly shaped like a piece of live edge. You can put a couple bench dogs in here. And now I can use a couple of bench dog clamps in conjunction with that, applying pressure from other directions and holding this piece in firmly. I didn't get quite firm enough. There we go, holding this piece in place firmly. So that's one of the ways that these are very useful. Clamping irregular objects can be really challenging, and it rises to that challenge. Another way they can be useful is for holding boards on edge on your workbench, because you need to do some sort of an operation working on the edge of this board. Maybe I'm planing the edge of this board, maybe I'm gonna route the edge of this board. Okay, I can clamp it in place this way and it'll hold it upright for me to work on, whatever it is I need to do. One of the old timers in our clamp collection is what's known as the hand screw clamp. Now, I know there's a lot of woodworkers that are kind of freaked out by these and don't really use them because they don't think they need them. Okay, maybe you don't. But there are things that these clamps will do that no other clamps we have will do, and that's specifically holding irregular objects. Here I'm holding a circle. You can't do that very well with an F clamp or any of the other clamps we've got. And here I've got a tapered wedge that I'm clamping. I use these mostly to hold things when I'm working on them. I'll put pieces into them when I need a way of holding something small or irregular for drilling it on the drill press, or doing something on the belt sander and I need something small, or even on the router table. They're great for holding small and irregular pieces. Now, the trick to these things is that if you hold both handles and turn them, that gives you an even amount of increase or decrease in the size. Okay, so I can turn this all the way down to closed, or I can open it up all the way. If I want to get that angle, I move one of these two handles, threading it, and not the other. So here I've got my taper here, so I can grab, say, something like this circle. Our next type of clamp is the spring clamp. Like our fast-acting clamp, this is a one-handed clamp, which is great when you need to be able to clamp something and you're already got your hands full of wood. These come in a variety of styles and sizes, and the size refers to how big the jaws open. Obviously, this clamp is bigger than this, but the real thing is that the jaws open farther, okay? Or especially if we compare it to this one, all right? The larger ones also give you a little more clamping pressure. There's other styles of them too. This particular style, these metal ones, are very, very common and very inexpensive. These are an inexpensive clamp, which can be nice because it allows you to get some clamps without spending a lot of money. But don't count on them for a lot of clamping pressure. They're more of a holding type clamp. If you're not the type of clamp you want to use, say, if you're trying to glue pieces of wood together. Will it hold them together? Well, yeah, if you're gluing pieces of wood like this together, yes, they will hold it together. I mean, I can put a couple of these on it, but it's not going to give you the kind of clamping pressure that you really want for a good glue up, okay? They're more of a handy clamp. When you need to hold something at the workbench or hang something up in your workshop. These are great like for hanging backdrops. You're going to take pictures of a piece that you've done. You want to hang up a backdrop. These are great. You're trying to hold something to the workbench while you do out some layout work or even some cutting. Say you're cutting something with a jigsaw and you want to hold something to the edge of your workbench. These are great because you can clamp it on there, do your cutting, remove the clamp, move the piece, reclamp very, very easily. Our next clamp is referred to as both band clamps and strap clamps. It's basically the same thing, okay? What it is you've got a nylon web strap attached to a clamp. These are great for irregular shaped objects and for picture frames, okay? If you're trying to put a frame together, or for that matter, a box together, and you're trying to get all four corners clamped at the same time, this is one of the few clamps that'll do it, and it's very simple to work with. As you can see, these clamps come with plastic corners that can be used in the corners, like in the case of what I'm doing here with this clamp. You tighten the clamp up and then there's a screw handle, allows you to tighten it even further. Another thing they do is, like I said, a regular objects, like say a round object. This is a small Coopered cylinder intended to be a trash can that I never finished. And so we've got a bunch of pieces we need to clamp together, holding it round. There aren't too many clamps that'll go round, okay? This does it very naturally. Now I've taken the corners out in this case, just wrapped the strap around it and hooked it up and then tightened it up. And now it gives me clamping pressure evenly all the way around the circle. So these are maybe not a clamp you would use all the time, but when you do need it, there's nothing that can do the same work the same way. We're almost done with our list, but I want to make sure I mention something a little unusual. This is, I guess you could say, a clamp of my own invention. These are rubber straps. Now, you're not going to find these at the hardware store or your tool store or the lumberyard. These actually come from the doctor's office. When you go to they draw blood for blood tests. They always put a band around your arm. That's it. Those are disposable. They throw them away. So I just tell the vampire that's drawing my blood, hey, let me have that. What these are good for is oddball shapes where nothing else will work. Like, let's say I've got two wedges here, and for some crazy reason I need to glue them together. I have no idea why I would do it, but let's say I needed to do that. And I don't care what you do, there isn't a single type of clamp in the world that's going to hold those without slipping. On the other hand, I can wrap my rubber strap around it, give it a quick tie off. Yeah, that's held together real good. So when you go to the doctors, when they draw blood, ask for that rubber strap. They're useful. I don't use it a lot, but there are times when I need something that's just a little bit different because I've got odd shaped things I'm trying to hold together. And these, they work great. We finally made it to our last clamp, and probably the clamp you wanted to see, and that's the parallel action clamp. Why did I leave this one for last? Well, mostly because you don't necessarily need it. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy them, and I'm not saying they're not a valuable addition to your clamp collection. What I'm saying is, as a beginning woodworker, don't rush out and buy parallel action clamps. There's better ways you can spend your money and leave this for later. Now, why are they called parallel action clamps? Well, because their robust design is created to make it so that the jaws remain parallel as you're applying clamping pressure, okay? I can run these clamps down on my piece of wood here. Actually, there's 3 pieces of wood that are already glued together. Tighten it up, and I've got even pressure from the top to the bottom. And that's really, really important. If I was using F-clamps or if I was using pipe clamps, I wouldn't necessarily have that. I'd probably have more pressure on the bottom than I would on the top. And that results in something like this. Here's a board that was put together with F-clamps or a panel. And if I put a straight edge on here, we can see that is not flat. It didn't bow down like this. What it did was the pressure caused it to bow upwards, okay? Now, there's ways around that. You can accomplish that with just using cauls. Cauls are just boards that are laid across and clamped together top to bottom to keep this flat, okay? But parallel action clamps will do it without the cauls. They're a great addition, especially if you can do a lot of edge glue-ups on, tabletops, the top of a dresser, anything where you're trying to make panels out of boards. And that's what they're for. It's a great clamp, but it is expensive. So let's not start off with this one, but when you get there, yeah, they're worth buying.